subscribers of the Johnson City Government Information Channel on Charter Cable Channel 192 and Comcast Cable Channel 17 in this live telecast of the January 8, 2019 Johnson City Regional Planning Commission meeting. This meeting will be rebroadcast on Friday, January 11, 2019 at 12 o'clock. This time we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we will start with our invocation and pledges by Commissioner Cooper.
Please join me in prayer. We seek your blessings on this task before us, Father. Bless our efforts with clear insight, our deliberations with wisdom, our work with clarity and accuracy, and our decisions with impartiality. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand and face the flag and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And so the next item up on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion, agenda passes. Next up will be approval of the minutes from our December 11, 2018 meeting.
So moved.
Motion for approval of the minutes.
Second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the motion passes, so our minutes are approved from December 11, 2018. We have no old business today on the agenda, so we'll move right into the new business, and we will ask, I believe we have Mr. Bernard Asong will go ahead and talk to us first about the subdivision approval at the Petcher XAC property replat.
Commissioners, before you is a request to grant approval for a subdivision creating 3 lots out of this piece of property on Carroll Creek Road. The lot is currently zoned R2 for low-density residential, and that requires 15,000 square feet lot size. It currently has a single-family house located on it, so its current land use is residential. Although there is a street, namely Ada Drive, cutting through the property, all of it is currently platted as 1 lot. Celia mentioned the property owner proposes to subdivide this and create 3 lots out of this piece of property. There is water that is available to all the lots that he proposes to create. However, sewer is not available to lots 2 and 3 as proposed. The city, the Water and Sewer Department, has committed to extending the sewer line to the property line, the corner of the property line as it currently exists precisely at this location. It will be the responsibility of the property owner to extend that sewer line from that point onward to lot 2. The line will be constructed within the public right-of-way. As such, the developer will be able to benefit from materials agreement, which the city offers for constructions as this inside the city limits. Based on our subdivision regulations require that in subdividing property, a property owner is required to dedicate additional right-of-way based on the existing construction plans for that right-of-way or the particular street classification. There is an existing and approved construction plan for Carroll Creek Road, which calls for the developer to move for this property line at this easterly end to be moved further into the property 4.63 feet. I have had a discussion with the property owner on this, requiring that the pin be moved further into the property to conform with that approved engineered construction plans. He has agreed to do that. Staff is recommending approval of this plat subject to the developer moving the easterly corner property line 4.63 feet into the lot.
Hassan, can you tell me about, is it Adair Street or what is the street that currently bisects the one lot?
Adair
Adair.
Drive.
And
Adair Drive.
it is a public street built to public standards?
No, ma'am, it's not built to public standard. It doesn't have driveway, curb, gutter. It doesn't have that. It's not built to public street standard.
But it is a public street.
It's a
But
public
it is
street.
a public
Right.
street?
It's just
Yes, ma'am.
grandfathered in.
It's a public street.
And its purpose is primarily just for access to the adjacent lot, or?
Its purpose, go to the area, let me get to the area view. It currently provides, Adair Drive comes down this way and provides access to all these properties. With this subdivision, it will be providing access to these two lots he's proposing to create. It will provide access to this piece of property which is already existing. It also provides access to this house. I'm of the impression that it was originally conceived before the city ever went out and annexed this from the county, probably to be extended to this road, create that interconnectivity.
And,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, and the proposed subdivision, tell us about the two lots that will be created in terms of conformity with the zoning regulations, please.
Before I get into that, I wish to correct something very quickly on the staff report, please. The property is in the R2 zoning district, which requires minimum lot size 15,000 square feet, not R2B. It's in the R2 district, which requires minimum lot size 15,000 square feet.
What is that in acres? We've been through that.
So-
It's conforming, it's not .33 acres or anything.
I see Alan dragging his calculator out.
We've been down the old square foot calculation thing before. so-
You don't want me doing it in my head again, I guarantee you.
The .33 acres lot, plus minus, usually surveyors will give you that about, because they really can't get it with equipment very precise. That would be 14,375 square feet.
Okay. So we're talking hundreds.
So
That's in acres, that's 15,000 in acres.
That's 15,000 in acres. 0.344 in acres.
Okay,
0.34?
4 in acres.
okay.
So at this particular moment, lot 2 will meet that 0.344. But when he adjusts it, when he moves that 4.63 feet that we're requesting, it's going to go down below 0.34. It may be 0.377 something. We don't really know precisely what that's going to be. Lot 2, as currently shown, is 0.33, and that is a 14,375 square feet. We have a provision in the zoning ordinance that when a subdivision is created and if it becomes substandard, if that act of subdivision creates a lot that does not meet such things as lot size, because that developer is dedicating land to the city, which we require or we need, then it should be considered conforming for zoning purposes without requirement for the property owner to obtain a
Maybe.
variance from the Board of Zoning
Should
Appeals.
or may?
Maybe,
The Planning Commission may.
yes. And what
So,
is
let-
that ordinance number again?
Let me, 6.3, let me get that, give me 1 second, please. 3.5.6.
Okay.
With a conformity, it is a shall. With a conformity, it is shall or required of street parking. This dedication is needed or required by the city of Johnson City. The property shall be considered conforming for zoning purposes without requirement of a variance.
Okay.
So for conformity purposes, it is a shall. For approval, it uses that word may.
Right.
And of course, there may be other elements beside just lot size that would cause the planning commission not to approve a plat. For example, if you don't have utilities, the city is under no obligation to create lots. The planning commission is under no obligation to approve the creation of lots that will not be served by minimum required utilities. So in that case, you're not required to approve the subdivision.
Very good.
And secondly, what he is dedicating here is the right-of-way, not the fee simple. He still owns the land. He still owns the land. And that area of the land added to this will exceed 15,000 square feet.
Okay. I was going to come back and we'll have a discussion on some of the finer points, I think, later, but anything else for staff right now? No? Are you good?
Yes, sir.
You were recommending
Approval.
approval,
Subject to
subject to.
the developer moving the easterly property line corner 4.63 feet into the lot in order to conform with the construction plans for Carroll Creek Road.
Excellent. Thank you. In light of that, I'm just going to ask if anybody's here that'd like to speak for or against this request, this subdivision request. Is anybody here wishing to speak for or against it? Okay, I'm able to see everyone's face in the room and no one's saying yes, so we'll close our public hearing and we can move along. So to frame the discussion on the commission for us, and this has been a good exercise for us to look at this ordinance 3.5.6 and how it applies to our subdivision process here. Because when we've dealt with this before, we've dealt with this in a manner that allows us to allow an existing lot to be considered conforming because of a hardship created by the city moving forward. That's been our experience with this ordinance and why it was created. And this is a unique situation that we're discussing because we're taking a lot that currently would be conforming and we're subdividing it and making two lots that would not conform only slightly. and that's an interesting thing. So the answer is the caveat here is that the triggering point of the dedication of the right-of-way, which we currently do not enjoy, the triggering point is the creating of the subdivision. So they are giving up something when they subdivide to us. And without any compensation, the compensation or the concession made is that we would consider what has been made, even if it's non-conforming, within reason, okay. And that's why we consider that shall in there. Otherwise, so that is the case here. And otherwise, this is, I would classify it as slightly non-conforming, but that doesn't get in the way of what should be considered the rules of good planning, which is this consistent with the land use plan? And I would suggest that it is here. And is it consistent with what's existing on this area? And if you look at what's been built north of this small public street already, Adair, it is consistent with what's been built there to the west already, and the things that we see surrounding it. So it's not out of character. And it is consistent with the land use plan. The variance is small, and it is triggered by the giving of this land to the city, or not necessarily giving of the land, but the right-of-way itself. Clearly, he still owns the land. So I understand this ordinance 3.5.6 to allow us then to consider this non-conforming situation as okay for this particular plat, given the concession being made for this particular landowner in his subdividing process. So that's kind of how I would frame everything that we've looked through and why we would look at it this way. I would want the public to understand that we don't have to legally approve non-conforming plats that come to us. That's not what we do. But when that makes sense, because of the way we're looking at this now, it's a nice way that we can be a friendly developing planning commission and city commission. And I think that's the point. And that's what we want to do, not create a problem, but be reasonable and have options. So having framed that discussion, I would bring that forward for people to discuss on the commission as to whether or not they wish to approve or disapprove the plat.
I know we don't want to set a precedent for something happening in the future and so forth and so on. But in the spirit of being a good city neighbor, and because there are concessions that are going to be made, and since the square footage is so insignificant in this particular case, I think we should look at it, from my perspective, favorably.
I believe the staff had at least looked at the resulting pieces of property and determined that a reasonable residence could be built on the property given all the existing setback requirements.
Yes, sir.
Does that include the bank that's there at Kell Creek? Did that take that into account?
Yes, they took that into account, and their access is going to be from Adair because of that bank.
First Tennessee Bank?
No, the bank.
Just kidding.
The slope.
The slope, excuse me.
Any further questions or discussion?
Given that
otherwise?
remark on the access from Adair, are there any plans to improve Adair or extend?
Extension, not so sure. I may let the city engineer speak to that. In terms of improvement, he has dedicated, right now Adair only has 20 feet wide right-of-way total. You couldn't even put the sidewalk, curb, gutter, and then still have enough room for the car to drive through a 10-feet lane. But with the additional dedication of right-of-way that he has made, we have room to make improvements in that particular section in future. With respect to extension, I will plead with the city engineer to speak to that.
Adair Drive does not appear on any list for improvements. Carroll Creek Road, however, has been around for a while, and we have the plans for it. And so the priority is on improving Carroll Creek versus Adair. If significant enough development occurs on the remaining large parcel, a developer may be required to do some widening. This reminds me of Hughes Street, which is way out on Watauga Road. And the developer put a row of houses facing Hughes Street, and Hughes Street was only about 10 feet wide. And they added 4 more feet in their direction. If the other guy does something on his side, it'll be widened by that developer. So we get it in segments of improvement, and whoever's doing the developing will do the improving. But right now, what is there for Adair Drive is sufficient for 3 homes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, do I have any further discussion or motions to be made regarding this plat?
I move we approve pending the developer moving or the owner moving that one property line terminus 4.6 feet. And with the recognition that we are basically approving 2 pieces of non-conforming property, but we think it's well within we believe it is it's logical and it's of benefit to the community at large.
Okay, so I'm going to restate this.
Please do.
And that Mr. Cooper's motion is that we approve the plat conditional upon the dedication of the required extra 4.63 feet as required by staff away from the street, and our reasoning being that it is consistent with the land use plan, that it's in compliance with ordinance 3.56, and that it's consistent with the existing character that's built around it. So that would be the motion, I believe, on the table. Do we have a second?
I'd second that.
We have a second. And do we have any discussions about the motion on the table? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Vice Chairman Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Hickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich,
Yes.
Commissioner Wild,
Yes.
Commissioner Williamson,
Yes.
Commissioner Calhoun,
Yes.
and Chairman Zayas.
Yes.
Motion approved as stated.
Thank you. So we'll move on to our next rezoning request, 4835 North Run Street, please.
Chairman, Commissioners, before you is a request to rezone a portion of the property located at 4835 North Rome Street, which is located at the intersection of North Rome Street and Hammett Road. The portion of the property that we're considering for rezoning tonight abuts Hammett Road and is shaded in turquoise right here. It's currently vacant. It's a .42 acre portion of a 4.0 acre lot. And and the applicant intends to build 3 single-family developments. As you can see, is indicated here by the matrix in green, that rezoning would be required for single-family development. The properties that abut North Rome Street in this area, you can see here examples like Dollar General, Pizza Plus, Hardee's, are characterized by commercial development. There is a multifamily development here just north of this property, and the areas that are behind the corridor, behind the commercial development, are primarily residential. And you can see that this is consistent with the future land use map. The red indicating commercial development, this corridor along North Rome Street is intended for commercial development with residential development behind that corridor. Therefore, this rezoning would be compatible with the future land use map. The concept plan, it's a 3 single-family home. He's proposing 3 single-family homes to be accessed by Brinkley's Way, which will be built in Phase 2. This is actually, I should say that this concept plan is Phase 3 of the cottages at Cedar Rock development. Brinkley's Way here will be built during Phase 2, and this parcel will be able to be accessed from Brinkley's Way. It meets all the requirements of the concept plan with units per, density units per acre and lot size. And staff recommends approval of the rezoning request and the concept plan.
Did they have the required neighborhood meeting yesterday?
They did.
Any
I have not
feedback?
heard.
Okay. Any further questions for staff right now? Thank you, Mr. Ryder. We'll go ahead and open up for public comment. Anybody wishing to speak for or against this rezoning request?
I'll just,
If you don't mind, just go ahead and approach and give us your name and your address, so we'll have it for the record. And thanks for being here.
it's Tim Carter, and I live at 116 Stonehenge Drive, Bristol, Tennessee. When we bought the property from the lady that owned it, she wanted a 200 corner lot there that could be commercial, and she would never sell us that little notch in the road. We wanted it from a start, trying to do it, but we finally came to a deal to buy the entire piece of property from her. So we're still working on what the plans would be for the rest of the B4 property.
Okay.
But since we were putting the street in and everything right now, it made sense to go ahead and get sewer and water and
Well, I was wondering
everything
what the story was.
to that.
I knew there had to be a story there.
She wanted at least 200 feet off of the
Okay.
road for a commercial lot, so it just, it's makes us go back through rezoning again, but, it's better than having to build a road and not get any lots off of it when we got the sidewalks, we got the sewer and water and everything there. So that's sort of the story.
Thank you very
Any other
much.
questions?
So you own the rest of the B4 property now, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else here wishing to speak for or against this rezoning publicly? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and open up for discussion and motions on the commission.
Make a motion to approve based on the rezoning would make it more consistent with the area land use that's already there, as far as having commercial in the front, residential in the back, off of the overlay, the existing overlay land use map. So my motion is to approve.
Motion to
Second.
approve based on consistent with the land use plan and existing zoning. In a second. Do we have any further discussions? No? Go ahead and call the roll.
Vice Chairman Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Hickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich,
Yes.
Commissioner Wild,
Yes.
Commissioner Williamson,
Yes.
Commissioner Calhoun,
Yes.
and Chairman Zioms.
Yes.
Motion approved as stated.
Great. Before we ask for an adjournment, I want to welcome Commissioner Calhoun. Thank you for the work you're doing on the city commission, but thank you for being here with us tonight. Sorry I didn't welcome you at the beginning. And Commissioner Hickson, we're glad to have you. So I apologize for my tardiness in recognizing you. And with that, have a motion to adjourn
So moved?
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn. Thank you.
Jane?